Noles All Access is brought to you by Visit Tallahassee, Seminoles, the Bank of Here, the energy-saving conservation programs of Tico People's Gas, real Coca-Cola taste with 0 sugar and 0 calories. Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, taste the feeling. Welcome to Noles All Access, where we take you inside Florida State athletics. I'm Jay Sutton, coming to you from the comfort of my own home as we continue to practice social distancing. And today we have a very special show for you. Head coach Mike Norvell joins the voice of the Seminoles, Gene Deckerhoff, for a video chat interview talking all things Florida State football, from recruiting to coaches, offense, defense, special teams, and everything in between. Today, we'll watch part 1 of their conversation, and part 2 will air on the next episode of the show. So stay tuned for the special interview with Mike Norvell coming up next on Noles All Access. Welcome back to this special edition of Noles All Access. As we're all anxiously awaiting the 2020 football season, we're bringing you a special interview with head coach Mike Norvell and the voice of the Seminoles, Gene Deckerhoff, who recently had a chance to talk all things Florida State football. So let's jump right into the conversation.
Welcome to our show, and here we are in the middle of spring. And Coach, as we observe social distancing, I believe you and I are about 10 miles apart from each other this morning, and we've got virtual classrooms and Zoom and all this other stuff. It's a unique, if not a surreal experience for a football team, isn't it?
It definitely is that, and there's been a lot of challenges that not only our football team is having to work through, but our entire country. And this is it's something that nobody predicted, and there's a lot of people that are having to adapt and adjust. But kind of like I told our team, sometimes the biggest challenges that you face in life, you'll bring some of the greatest blessings. And I think we're all learning from the experience. It's forced us to slow down as a country, and we're definitely doing everything that we can to make sure that we're giving our guys the best advantage possible. I know we're meeting here on Zoom. About a month ago, I couldn't even told you what Zoom is, and now I feel like I'm a Zoom master. So this is one way to do it, I guess.
You moved to Tallahassee in December. Family, how are you and your family in your personal life? I mean, we're basically quarantined, lockdown. I haven't left my home maybe twice in the last 4 weeks.
Well, it was definitely a unique timing. We moved into our house a week before spring break. We just started spring practice, and I thought spring break would give me a little bit of time to get acclimated and try to get settled as best as possible. I didn't realize that 1 week of spring break would stretch into the next month and beyond. And so I think I've got every project done around the house. I know Maria's excited about that. But it's been good really from the family aspect of it to help Mila. She's only 5 years old, but her transition to a new place. I mean, it's been good to have me around the house, but we're definitely excited about being here, and it's been nice having the whole family here.
Coach, a lot has happened since December the 8th when you were named the head coach at Florida State University, and you hit the ground running. You had to get the early recruiting season taken care of. You had to hire a staff and do all that at the same time. And how you hit the ground running, Mike. How in the world did you put a staff together and recruit at the same time?
Well, I mean, you call it a run, I called it a sprint. It was definitely a whirlwind of a couple of days. I think we had 8 days to before the first signing day, and it was really as we were going through that process, just trying to get as much information on the young men that we were looking to recruit in that early period. Obviously I had a pretty good sense of guys that I wanted to target within the coaching staff. But just making sure that we found the right fit, and that's truly been the focus of any personnel that we bring in, whether it's a recruit or coach. Is all about the right fit for Florida State, and that's the thing that I was most proud of and most excited about for our future. Is I believe we have a special group. I think it was a really good first class, especially with the circumstances that we went through it. I think we got some dynamic players that are going to be able to come in and be able to help us in the short term, and especially be able to develop in the long term that I think are going to be impact players for us. But that coaching staff that you mentioned. I was so very pleased with the group we were able to bring together. Not only do we have great schematic coaches that understand the game at a really high level, but the one consistent among this staff is they're all great human beings. They're all heart-led coaches that that truly have a mentality of service, and these guys know how to teach and impact our players in every aspect of their life. So I think we absolutely hit a home run with the staff we were able to put together.
Stay tuned for more of this special interview with Mike Norvell coming up next on Noles All Access. Welcome back to this special edition of Noles All Access. Let's continue listening in to this exclusive conversation with head football coach Mike Norvell.
Coach, you're the youngest head coach of the Atlantic Coast Conference, and in a span of about 4 weeks, you were able to put together a young staff, but a very experienced staff, and I guess we'll have to explore those things. First, you mentioned your staff in our last segment. You're very proud of the guys that you brought in to assist you in rebuilding this Florida State football program. Let's talk about your coordinators, offense, defense, special teams coordinator. And the last time I checked, Auburn scored 48 points on Alabama and beat the Crimson Tide last year. And the offensive coordinator of the Auburn Tigers was Kenny Dillingham, and he's your offensive coordinator. Tell us about. He's been with you for a long time, hasn't he?
He has, and I think Kenny's one of the brightest minds in college football. We've been together, I believe, 6 of the last 7 years. So I was able to hire him when I was at the offensive coordinator at Arizona State, in an entry-level position. And then just as we continued to grow together, when I got the head coaching job at Memphis, I was able to bring him along. And, it's just been fun watching, how he's grown and matured throughout his coaching career. And, he's an incredible coach when, the schematic, knowledge that he brings, the way to attack defenses, has a tremendous understanding of what we want to do and what we've done offensively and how we've kind of adapt over the years. But he is a special coach and a special teacher, but just brings an incredible insight to the relationship aspect with these young men. Obviously he's one of the youngest offensive coordinators in all of football, but he has great energy, and he was just always a pleasure to be around.
Yeah, welcome to Tallahassee, Florida, Kenny Dillingham. Now you went to experience with your defensive coordinator, a guy that has head coaching experience and has been a defensive coordinator at 3 or 4 different schools. How did you get Adam Fuller to leave Marshall and come down to Tallahassee, Florida with you?
Well, Adam was with me last year at Memphis, and obviously we were excited about the improvement, the changes that I saw. I mean, I think Adam's one of the best defensive minds in the game. You look at his career, and no matter where he's been, you've seen great improvement. And with his defensive approach, it's a fundamental approach with a very aggressive mindset. Everything that Adam does is trying to put his players in the best position to showcase their skills and talents. And so, I really got to know Adam a couple of years ago as we were going through that interview process, trying to find the right fit, and one of the most, dynamic teachers in things that I don't like seeing necessarily all the time on offense. And so as Adam and I got to know each other, we're very like-minded in our approach, developing those relationships, building the overall mentality and the way that we want to attack on the defensive side of the ball. And we saw that improvement there in Memphis, which allowed us to win a championship. And there's no doubt in my mind he is the absolute right fit here at Florida State to help get our defense back to where it belongs to be, and that's as one of the nation's elite.
Yeah, those great championship teams here at Florida State always featured outstanding defense. Look forward to seeing Adam Fuller and Mike Norvell's defense go to work this season. Coach, special teams a big part of the game of football. Let's not forget that. You brought in a young coach that has defensive coordinator experience at Nebraska, North Carolina, among others. And tell us about John Papuchis. And I think I pronounced it John. I'm just going to call him JP. Tell us about your special teams coordinator.
Well, that's how he'll introduce himself as Coach JP, because he's a he's one of the best coaches, I think, in the country. You look at a guy that, since he's come into the collegiate ranks, about over 75% of his coaching career, he's been a coordinator, either a defensive coordinator or special teams coordinator. Somebody that when you look at his special teams units, explosive plays have followed him everywhere that he goes. And this last year, I was one of the top special teams efficiency teams there at the University of Maryland. He's a guy that I've got to know over the years just through common contacts. Was never had the opportunity to be able to bring him to school that I was at, but then coming to Florida State, he was a guy that I highlighted early in the process of wanting to be able to try to bring here to be a part of this staff. Not only is he a dynamic mind, with how his approach to the special teams unit, but his overall experience. I think he's going to bring great value. You also being able to help on the defensive side of the ball with our defensive ends, being able to assist with Coach Hagan's. But I think that JP is a guy that throughout his career, nothing but success has followed, and we're definitely fired up to have him here and leading our special teams unit.
And Coach, in your career, your special teams have always excelled. You put a big emphasis on special coverage, particularly. You've been among the national leaders in coverage and also in return. So special teams a huge part. I can't wait to see JP's work on the football field this fall.
Well, that was something that, on my opening press conference, I didn't really get into a whole lot of talking about offense or defense. My focus was on special teams because that's where I want us to leave our mark. And, obviously all three phases of the game are important, but it's something that I absolutely believe in. And I'm going to be highly involved in all aspects of what we're doing. But those special teams units, those are critical.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more of this special interview with Mike Norvell. Welcome back to this special edition of Noles All Access. Let's continue listening in to this exclusive conversation with head football coach Mike Norvell.
We've talked about your offensive, defensive, and special teams coordinators, but you threw out that name, Odell Haggins. He played 4 years at Florida State, went to the pros and played a couple of years, got back into coaching. And, Coach, he's the longest tenured assistant coach in Division I football. Odell Haggins, an interim coach, won some games as an interim. Tell us about your relationship with Odell Haggins and why you needed him on this staff.
Well, it was a kind of a unique situation. I've heard nothing but great things about Odell throughout my coaching career. One of my longtime friends in the coaching profession, has actually has had a true friendship over the years. Coach Paul Randolph was my defensive line coach for many years there at Memphis, and I always heard stories about Odell Haggins. And when I had the opportunity to come and obviously I saw the job that he was doing as interim head coach. Really more than anything, he said, I looked at what the players were saying, the impact that he had, the mentality and the approach of what he brought every single day. And, being able to, sit down and talk to him. I mean, not only do you see a man that has an incredible experience of developing top level talent, but the impact that he has off the field with these kids. I mean, it was funny. I sat down with every player on our football team when I got the job. I sat down with them all individually, and there were two coaches that had one common term that was used when these players talked about him, and it was Odell and Ron, and the word love. That came up multiple times with kids, and that's something that you want to see. You want players that love their coach. They want to get a sense that it's more than just a game of football, and that was something that really stood out to me. And there was no doubt that after I got a chance to sit down with Odell and Ron, that those guys were the absolute right fit. Obviously they're to the core of who they are. They're Florida State Seminoles, and I couldn't be more excited about being able to be on staff. And be able to take this opportunity to the next level with them.
If you get a chance to go fishing with Odell, Coach, he knows where the fish are, where they're biting, and he'll catch the limit before you know it. Now, Ron Dugans, you were a wide receiver when you played in college. You started coaching as wide receivers, and Ron Dugans, he's been a wide receiver at the college level, the pro level, and at Florida State. This is his hometown. Wide receivers and how to coach them, and Ron Dugans is about as good as you can get.
Oh, absolutely. And it was when I first got the job, we hit the ground running like we talked about earlier, and we were on the road recruiting. And it so happened that I was able to be with Ron for the majority of that first week before that early signing period. And the thing that stood out to me was one, the relationships with the young men that we were recruiting. Obviously the impact, just how much of a genuine soul that he has, and the way that he communicates, the way that he teaches. But it also gave us a great opportunity between our travels to talk ball. And it was funny if you say an interview process. Well, Ron got an interview week because he got to spend most of the time with me, and just really connected. And I was so excited, to be able to get to know him, and really, what truly from his core, he is all about throughout this coaching profession, and he wants to make an impact. And so that's something, obviously I know, being back at Florida State for the prior year, the receiving core really saw a lot of growth, and we're excited about what he's going to be able to help develop them here moving forward in their future.
Tallahassee's own Ron Dugan's coach. You finished up your staff. David Johnson's your running backs coach, also recruited. Just a brief comment on the total staff and the guys that you brought in here, in addition to Ron and Odell here.
Absolutely. And, I had great relationships with a lot of guys that we were able to have on staff. You mentioned David Johnson, Marcus Woodson. Those guys were on my early staff there at the University of Memphis. And they had opportunities to go to a couple other places. But when I came to Florida State, they quickly jumped on the opportunity to come and be a part of this staff and what we're doing. A guy like Chris Thompson, who is my deputy head coach. I've known Chris since I was a player in college. He was actually on staff at Central Arkansas when I was playing, so I got to see firsthand the impact he had on players. And he has head coaching experiences there at Abilene Christian, and I was able to work with him in the past. Obviously a guy that I'm really excited about is Coach Chris Marv, our linebackers coach. I've got to know Coach Marv, from my time at Memphis. That's where he's originally from. And you talk about how relationships kind of spark future opportunity. I met Chris on the recruiting trail once, and we were able to kind of jumpstart a relationship. And he was a guy that I just identified as one of the top up and coming coaches in all of college football. And when obviously coming to Tallahassee, he was the guy that really pinpointed that I wanted to be a part of this staff. You look at a coach like Alex Atkins, who really I didn't have much of a previous relationship with, but had only heard great things about. I'd competed against him when he was offensive line coach at Tulane, and he actually took our O-line position from being an offensive coordinator at Charlotte, where he helped lead one of the biggest turnarounds in all of college football. An exceptional mind, a great coach, great teacher. Really fired up about Alex and what he brings to our offense and developing that group on the offensive front.
Stay tuned for our final segment with head coach Mike Norvell. Welcome back to this special edition of Noles All Access. Before we wrap up today's show, let's listen into this final segment with head coach Mike Norvell.
Coach, coaches are hands-on guys. Before we go, they're hands-on guys, and that means you got to be face-to-face. But during the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, you can't get that hands-on coaching stuff. That's something that we're going to have to wait to get that on. I know you can't wait till this thing goes away and we can get back to coaching kids in football.
Well, we're trying to make the most of the opportunity, and it's something that everybody's going through. We're trying to make sure that we're working and being as efficient as possible, and helping build the most important talent that our kids have, and that's knowledge. And it's something that we preach to them all the time, is that we want to be a smart football team. So I know we're trying to utilize the virtual meetings as much as possible, and trying to build their knowledge and understanding of what we're going to ask them to do.
Yeah, Coach, what would we ever, if we didn't have personal home computers and we did not have the internet, we're 10 miles apart. We didn't have those things, we'd be out of business.
It's I sit there and I think about the benefit of some of the technology that we do have access to. I'm very grateful for that, and it's allowing these guys to continue to grow and just continue to stay connected, because I think that's one of the most important things, is at least with the Zoom media and being able to have these conference calls, they're able to see their teammates, and that's one of the things that making sure that these guys stay connected is obviously very critical.
I don't know about you all, but I am pumped for the upcoming football season. And we just want to thank you all for watching part 1 of Gene's interview with head coach Mike Norvell. And we promise we'll have part 2 on the next episode of Noles All Access. Until then, stay safe and go Noles. Noles All Access is brought to you by Visit Tallahassee, Seminoles, the Bank of Here, the energy-saving conservation programs of Tico People's Gas. Real Coca-Cola taste with 0 sugar and 0 calories. Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. Taste the feeling.